Bluesman by Christopher S. Allen. Originally published by Kellen Publishing. Read by the author. For Annette Johnson, I haven't forgotten to put roses on your grave. Chapter 1. I think it's strange what we're allowed to see. We can see stars and galaxies that are millions of miles away and never reach them. Yet we know they exist. What we see are the dead, witnessed but not experienced. Same as magic, for lack of a better word. Like love, energy, and people, there is good magic and evil magic. Sometimes it's instilled in a man's bones. Other times it's adopted and grows like a genetic mutation on the soul.
Anytime you thinking evil, you thinking about the blues.
Howlin' Wolf said that. Evil's what I've been thinking lately. Sticky evil. I picture it like a sweat from my pores. Nah, I don't consider myself to be from the South, though I come from North Carolina, a good way below the Mason-Dixon line. But Granite Falls in Caldwell County, North Carolina, isn't my picture of the South. Once I got past Columbia, South Carolina, then I felt I was in the South. Spanish moss adds a lot to the scenery, and is a big part of my perception on how the South should look. I wasn't born into a very musical family. I started out like my parents, no real interest in the way of music, other than doing 2 years of trumpet in the high school marching band. But then my eyes happened to come across something one day at my grandparents' house. I was examining and looking through some antique stuff in their back room when I accidentally placed my hand on something small and triangular. I lifted my hand and saw the guitar pick on a shelf in the roll-top desk. It was white and smooth. I picked it up to look at. Holding it between my thumb, fore, and middle finger, an inch from my nose, the hair and skin on my body prickled and stood up. I also heard a haunting hum. I wasn't sure if it was in my head or all around the room, but I swear I heard what had to be Blind Willie Johnson humming, "Dark Was the Night." Try sleeping after listening to that song at night. Song's a demon taunter if there ever was one. They come out to pierce your soul when it's played. I swallowed and turned, gently rubbing the pick between my fingers. I swallowed again and placed the pick back. I felt scared and left the room. I went out to the back porch where my grandfather was grilling steaks in the backyard. A few people from church were coming over this evening for a cookout. He waved at me when he saw me come out, and I waved back and went down the steps to the backyard. "Need any help?" I asked when I got near him. "Not him," he said, turning a steak. "Could do to get the horseshoes set up." I nodded and started to walk off. "Everything okay?" he asked me. "Look like old Scratch been trying to bargain with you." My skin cooled and prickled at the mention of old Scratch. "Just want to help if I can." "Okay, just checking." I went into the garage and got the horseshoes and set them up, glancing at my grandfather as he grilled. When I went back inside, I stayed around my grandmother and helped her in the kitchen. I felt as if I were 8 again, afraid to go off alone in the back and upstairs of the house. Strangely, it got better as the day's light started to fade away, but by then friends and family were here. Once the conversations, games, and music started, my fear was gone. Later that evening, my grandfather caught me coming out of the bathroom. "Looking better," he said as I stepped out. I was about to say something to him, but he had already walked past me into the bathroom and closed the door. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a milkshake. I placed the empty blender pitcher in the sink, and as I turned around with my glass to my lips, I saw my grandfather come strolling in. His eyes shined humorously at me. He looked past me, through the screen door, and then back at me. "Something got you today," he said. "I'm wondering what it was. You didn't do anything wrong earlier, but something spooked you." I swallowed some of my milkshake and said, "Did I really look scared?" He laughed. "Scared? Nah, just a bit spooked. Like you had a near miss or something." I took another drink.
Boy, I bet there's only one thing in this whole house that could do such a thing to a person.
We were in the antique room. My grandfather slid the roll-top desk open. My milkshake glass was cold against my hand, but my skin was warm. I wasn't nervous so much now that I was with my grandfather.
You must have been around this for all your 18 years, and for some reason it bothered you today.
He picked up the ivory-looking pick. He looked at the thing curiously, but as if he understood it at the same time. If that guitar pick had any power, my grandfather was in control of it. He placed the pick back on the shelf without offering it to me. "How'd you come by?" I asked. Granddad shook his head.
Your grandmother's daddy had it.
"I came by when he passed on. I never knew Neemaw's dad played guitar." Granddad was nodding.
I wasn't a regular picker.
"But he picked it up when he was stationed in Mississippi, before he was shipped out to the Pacific." "So what's up with it?" Granddad ran his hands through the sides of his hair before giving me his answer.
Well, it depends on what you believe.
"I'm not quite sure, but I believe the story that was told to me. Whether it's true or not, it still holds something that's beyond mortal man's understanding." "What were you told about it?"
Let's get a cup of coffee and sit down in the living room. I can tell you a bit."
My cold glass now replaced with a warm coffee mug, and my grandfather rocking in his recliner, and me on the couch, I listened.
Well, about that pick, as I was told, it's made from two men's fingers. Your great-granddaddy won it in a poker game one night and felt he had been gypped, but he'd actually won all the other had. So, anyway, he shipped out to California with a bit of money and his pick. For some reason, he gets the good idea to buy a guitar before shipping out to Hawaii. There he plays a bit with other sailors and Marines, Hawaiian music, but he's never played before. And he's wanting to play other stuff, darker stuff. On top of that, he claimed his nightmares increased and he had a hard time handling some sort of terror. I think it lasted him his whole deployment. When the war was over and he was blessed to be stationed back in Mississippi, he started to ask around about that pick. Well, sometime he's doing this, someone tells him that it's made from an old blues player's finger, Charlie Patton to be exact. The name was familiar to him, but he didn't quite know who Charlie Patton was. But your great-granddaddy started to listen to some of Charlie Patton's music. Now, I'm sure it made him feel a bit odd, but your great-granddaddy kept that pick. Now, he didn't do much for a while when he was stationed there, but one night some sailors asked him to come out and play with them, just as a rhythm guitarist. Your great-granddaddy apparently stole the show before the set was over. Didn't even mean to. After that show, some guys started asking questions and became a bit violent, saying that they know that guitar pick. Oddly enough, most bluesmen don't even use a pick, but whatever. From a few other shows he ends up doing, a few other people try to get this pick, saying they know of it or something. Your great-granddaddy was actually shot at and threatened with a knife over it. So with all this concern going on about one little guitar pick, he looks around and finds someone, I think a gypsy woman or something like that, to do a reading. Before he even brings out the pick, she says, "Welcome, Charlie. Robert, I didn't expect to see you back so soon."
"Did he go to the gypsy woman with a few friends?" I asked.
"No, he went in by his lonesome. The two people she called were the people that make up that pick, Charlie Patton and Robert Johnson. One piece of bone from a finger on the right hand, and one piece of bone from a finger on the left hand. Musical hands. I think that it was once he learned that, and he quit going out and playing. I think he even retired that pick." I knew the names, but I was curious why someone would make a pick from their bones. I knew the significance of the hands. I asked. Well, it comes from various forms of witchcraft and voodoo. You take a piece of a person's soul and essence when you take a part of them. The charm or artifact should bring you some sort of their skill and luck, about like carrying a lucky rabbit's foot.
Except this gives you the ability to play.
A little bit, but not everything. Ain't no easy way for anything. And even your great-granddaddy had to pick up a few things before he went right to the music. But he got it once he started.
Because of the pick. Granddad shrugged.
I believe it had something to do with it, but it didn't give him all the ability to play.